We can get started. This is the workshop for building successful teams. So excited that you're here. Welcome. So first, I want to thank the Sacramento Hispanic Chamber of Commerce for inviting me to host this workshop. I'm a proud member of the chamber, and I've been really impressed by all of the work that they do to support the business community. So if you're not already a member or familiar with what they're doing, I really encourage you to check them out. And I'm just really excited to talk to you about the topic of building successful teams. So my name is Betsaida LeBron. I am a team building expert and the founder of ImprovEQ. So my educational background is in psychology and education. I've always been fascinated by people, how we think, but also how we evolve and grow and learn throughout our lives. I'm really passionate about building collaborative teams because I know that things go smoother when we know how to work together and we can build on each other's strengths. So I also have a soft spot in my heart for people managers because I know that leaders can make or break the company culture. So I have been a manager myself. My first role as a manager was as the director of the California Youth Crisis Line. And there I supervised a team of almost 40 to respond in high crisis situations. And so since then, I've managed many teams and really know that being able to support the team and add a little bit of fun to even hard work is really important. I'm also a veteran improviser. I've been on stage for going on 15 years and as a performer, but also teaching improv, stand-up, and storytelling. And so I've seen time and time again how laughter and humor can really connect a room and create a path to authenticity and growth. And it's really important that we're able to open up and be more authentic and connect with each other because the work world is collaborative. It's becoming increasingly collaborative between meetings, emails, Slack channels, or WhatsApp, or whatever else that you're using in your professional life. The average person spends over half of their work life collaborating and communicating with others. So it's really important to understand how we can work better together. And for leaders and companies who want to be successful, it really starts with having a strong internal team. We'll be recording this. Here's my caveat for you. Know that anytime that I stop sharing my screen, anything, all of that will not be recorded. That's going to get cut out and will not be shared with the public. So your face will never be in the video. So that gives you more permission to be on camera. No one will see this but us, okay? But all the parts where I'm speaking, all of that's going to get edited down and shared with the chamber's audience. Sound good? Okay. So I've told you quite a bit about me, you know who I am. And now I kind of want to know who is in the room. So I want to go around the room and do 3 words. So what that means is I just want to know who you are, say hello, you know, who you are. And then in 3 words, how you doing? And you can use these 3 words however you'd like. So they might be a 3-word sentence. They might be 3 separate words, however you want, but you have 3 words. All right. Thank you all for sharing. That really helps to know who's in the room. And hopefully you can kind of feel a little bit more like we know a little bit more about each other, which is nice. It warms the whole room up, right? We're not just strangers, right? We got all the, I like quickly recognize who my caffeinated people are. I'm like, yeah, it's good, right? So I'm gonna go back to sharing. So thank you so much for sharing your 3 words. And we're gonna be talking about teamwork. And kind of starting with that is like the question of but why is it so important? Like, why does it matter that we even think about teamwork? Well, there's a couple of reasons why it's really important, right? Is that the collective effort of a group enhances productivity and the delivery of higher quality work. So teams actually can do more than an individual can when they're effective, right? That's the key. And the more people you have working on a problem, the more ideas and solutions that there are. And so as a result, problems can be solved more quickly and more effectively. And also, you can have a team, when you have a team of people who really work well together and enjoy each other's company, it makes for a much more pleasant work environment, a more positive work culture, which means happier employees, which means employees that stay longer. So these are really important reasons why teamwork is necessary. But even though we know it's necessary, teamwork is really hard, right? Effective teamwork. I'm sure that each one of you can think of a time when you were on a team that wasn't maybe that effective and how that really is painful, right? And so why is it that it's hard? Is because work environments are really complex. There's no one size fits all for a team, and things are constantly evolving and changing. And so for me, as I think about workplaces and how they're constantly changing and evolving, and that you need to be able to change and evolve to be successful, right? In other words, it means you have to be adaptable. You have to be able to adapt not only as leaders, but also as individuals, as a team. And when I think about adaptable teams, for me, that's like it's improv, right? Because that's what that's what we do in improv. We are a team that gets on stage without a plan and figures out how do we make something out of nothing, right? And the way that we do that is by being in the moment, working collaboratively, accepting what each person is contributing, and then supporting each other to build something together, right? And that's what makes us really effective. And I think that that's not just on stage, that applies even off stage, which is this applied improvisation, because we're all improvising all the time, right? Not one of you got a script this morning about what was going to happen. Matter of fact, nobody got a script on Monday about how your week was going to play out, right? We're all improvising all the time. So why not learn how to do it from a pro, right? And then the other piece that is really important to me when I think about how to be adaptable and work together as a team is emotional intelligence. So as humans, we are inherently emotional creatures, and emotions influence everything that we do and how we act and react in our workplace. So it's all about the ability to recognize our behaviors, our moods, our impulses, and then manage them in a positive way so that we can communicate effectively and empathize with others and manage our stress and overcome challenges, situations, and then diffuse conflict. So emotional intelligence is really important for great teams, but it's a skill that can be learned through practice. So you might have figured out that emotional intelligence is EQ. So ImprovEQ is literally, that's my company, and that's what I put together, is this idea of improv and emotional intelligence, so that we can play. And I've built that together to create a system, which is pause, play, perform. So that is my method of how I do things and how that all comes together. So I'm going to tell you what that means, but then I'm going to show you, because we are going to do it. Okay. So pause is the first thing. And when I talk about that, the goal is always to interrupt unhealthy automatic reactions. Right? There are so many times when something happens and without thinking, you all of a sudden have a reaction, right? And so what we want to do is we want to find ways to stop for those automatic reactions from happening, especially when they are not helpful and they're not serving our greater intention, okay? Play is really important. I know this one seems like it's silly and doesn't make sense, but it is, I tell you, one of the most important things, and we don't have enough of it in work, right? Because play is essential to learning. We learn 10 times faster when we're in a state of play. And play is not just about fun, play is also about challenge. Play is about stepping outside of your comfort zone so that you can grow and so that you can learn. And so if you're in a space where you're really rigid, you're not giving yourself permission to play, you're also not giving yourself permission to grow. And so that's why play is so important. And lastly, perform. That is all about measuring is what we're doing, what we want to be happening. It's tracking that and getting that feedback and understanding if the action is in alignment with your impact and intent, right? Does it all make sense together? So really what I want to be doing is I want to help teams like yours collaborate, improvise, and have fun. And like I said, we're going to actually do this. So the first thing that we're going to do is a game. It's called Yes, Thank You. And it seems very simple. And in some ways it is, right? So right now I have had the spotlight for this full time, right? We shared it a little bit as people shared their 3 words. But what I want to do is I want to share that space now, right? And how I'm going to do that is by calling someone's name. When I call your name, your job is just to say yes to receive it. And then I will respond with a thank you. You will then say someone else's name. They will respond with a yes. You will say thank you. Okay. And we don't know who is going to be called at what time. There is no order to this, but the goal is to be ready because at any point your name can be called. And also once you send it off to someone, make sure you say thank you. It's important to end the loop of the conversation. All right. Right. We were all ready because you didn't know when your name was going to be called. So you had to be ready. And like half the time we were calling Leticia. So she really had to be ready. Right. So exactly. And we're able to have some fun. And sometimes people made mistakes. And you can tell in this, what we did was we just laughed and had a good time, right? When someone missed the opportunity to say thank you and we reminded them, they didn't like beat themselves up. They were just like, oh yeah, okay. And then we just got better and we had more fun, right? So there's a lot of things that are happening here that are really important and we'll talk about them later. So the next game that I want to play is called book titles. So I'm just going to explain it with the slide on, and then we'll come back and we'll play. So book titles is going to be where I'm going to group you into small groups, and I'm going to put you in a breakout room. And you're going to work collaboratively to come up with the titles of some books. And so how this is going to work is you're going to be in a group with 3 or 4 people. Let's say there's 4 of you, and you're going to create a book title 1 word at a time. Does that make sense? So each person can only contribute 1 word when it is their turn. So the very first thing that you're going to do is decide the order in which you're going to go around. And you might have a title that's 4 words or less, or you might have a title that's more than 4 words. And then that means you might have to go around the circle more than once, right? So a couple things that I want you to think about as you're doing this is 1, this is silly and this is fun, and the goal should just be to have a good time, okay? The stress that happens for people is in thinking that their word has to be perfect, or it has to be funny, or any of those things. And I want you to let go of all of those things. The best thing that you can do is let yourself be fully in the moment. And what that means is that you are in this present moment and you're not judging yourself or others, because judgment only exists in the past, because you can only judge something that has already happened. And in the same way, if you're worried or anxious, you can only be worried about something that is in the future that is yet to happen, right? So the goal is to be present right here, right now. And that is how we're going to just add. All you have to do is listen to what came before and then add the word that makes sense to you in that moment. Keep it simple and just keep it going. So you'll decide, okay, this is going to be, someone throw out a genre, a self-help book. And then you come up with the title, How to Eat Eggs Every Day. And any person decides that's the title, you'll start saying, yes, 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 yes. And if anyone, it doesn't matter the order, anyone says yes, you all support by being like, yes, 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 yes. That's the title of the book. And then that one is done, you can create a new title. Okay? So the goal is to go as quick as you can and don't overthink it.
Okay.
Okay, creative, the expectations of perfection didn't exist, right? Kind of like what Leticia was saying is that we're just, you're supportive of each other, you know, just give us something we can play with, that we can work with so that we can keep adding to it. And so this is all really important. And in these last couple games that we've been playing, I have been demonstrating to you what it means to show up to be the kind of team that is going to be successful. And I want to talk to you about what it is that was happening. And what is beautiful about this is that there's data behind what I'm going to tell you. So I want to talk to you about Project Aristotle. So Google, years ago, commissioned a research project named Project Aristotle, based on the quote attributed to Aristotle that is the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, which is all about teams, right? And they set out to answer this question, how do you build the best team? And so they had some ideas. They had some things that they thought maybe were true. They thought that maybe it was combining the best people. Could it be maybe that it was similar personalities? Like if introverts work with introverts, they'll be better, or if extroverts work with extroverts, they'll be more successful. They also thought maybe if people are friends and they really like each other, so if teams hang out outside of work, they might be more successful doing their work. And these are some of the questions that they were asking themselves and combing through the data. They actually looked at over 180 teams throughout Google and looked at all of the data. I mean, they are, right, the masters of data analysis. And they looked at all of the data that they had on their teams, everything, for over a year to find out what the answer was. And it was very interesting what they came up with. They found that specific personality types or skills or backgrounds didn't matter. So the idea of extroverts and introverts, or the teams, whoever it was, that the who was on the team was not as important as they thought. It actually wasn't really that important at all. It didn't make a difference when it came to successful and effective teams. They also found that the best teams shared conversation equitably, right? And were very aware of each other's emotions. So each person got a chance to contribute whatever they were doing, and they were able to feel and sense each other's emotions. When somebody had something to say, but they weren't saying it, they could feel that and they could intuit, and they were intuitive about it and would encourage that person to speak up, right? So they were very aware of each other and they shared. And lastly, they found that psychological safety was the #1 factor when it came to successful teams. So if you don't know what psychological safety means, basically what it looks like in teams is the way that we can show up and that we feel safe. And so if you are on a team that has psychological safety, that means that team members are able to give and receive feedback, ask difficult questions, raise issues and concerns, offer solutions to problems. They can disagree, they can ask for clarification, they can ask for help, and they're able to admit their errors, all without fear of being penalized for it. So this is what psychological safety looks like, right? And so this connects, and the previous slide, so much to what we have already started to do as we were creating these little games in improv, because you had to recognize, right, that you just wanted to let everyone contribute, right? We practiced that idea of sharing, right? Everyone had a voice, everyone had an opportunity to contribute, and people are more willing to contribute when there's psychological safety, when you know that your contribution is going to be valued and heard by the group, right? So kind of as we played that last game of book titles, where you feel like it doesn't matter what the word is, you're still allowed to contribute your word, right? That everything that you're adding is going to be taken collectively for the whole of the group. And when we're allowed to contribute in that way, it really changes how we show up and how we work together. So we often think that things have to be really smooth, and that if everything runs perfect and that it's smooth, that's what an effective and good team is. And the data actually shows us that there's more value when things don't go perfectly. It's how we recover in those moments where things don't go well that prove how good a team we actually have. right? And so what I want us to have a conversation around is I want to ask the question is, what is a mistake that you made that you actually learned from, right? Because this is just a different way to think about your mistakes. And I'm going to put you back in your same groups, and I want you to share. Be mindful, right, of the time, because you have about, I'm going to give you 5 minutes before we have to come back. And what I want you to make sure that everyone gets a chance to share, so about a minute apiece. What is a mistake that you made that you learned from? Okay. Any questions about this? Okay, I'll see you back in 5 minutes. Welcome back. So I hope that in these conversations that you were able to share. Did everyone get a chance to share? I hope. Not quite. We're running out of time, so unfortunately, and that's okay, right? That's a learning opportunity also for us to recognize like how to share more. So for those who realize, oh, I took up more space than I had time to share for other people, that's okay. It's all a learning opportunity, even that, right? So what all of this is really helping us to understand, as I hope that you start to think about mistakes a little differently, and that what mistakes are is that they are opportunities. And that's how we see it as improvisers. When something happens as a mistake, we just think, oh, something that I didn't expect to happen has now happened. And it's almost this gift because now I can change and do something with it, right? They're all opportunities. And what all of this is helping us to recognize is that strong teams understand that we are only human. And so it gives us permission to make mistakes. Strong teams give permission to make mistakes. They have space for that because they know that that's how we learn, right? And so there has to be room for this if you're looking to build a strong team, is make sure that you recognize that your team is made up of humans. So as you're thinking about that and what that means for a team building strategy, that means that you need to always start with building trust, right? So thinking about how can we recognize that we trust each other, and part of that trust comes from recognizing that you can make mistakes, that somebody is not going to jump down your throat if you're learning, right? That doesn't help us to learn. And there is not one of us that is going to be perfect all the time, and to hold that burden is impossible. And it also sets us up to not be really good team members when we're always trying to watch our backs. And, that is not the kind of team that is going to really be successful. And if we're talking about successful teams, it starts with building trust. And you have to give time for people to get to know each other. And this is not just work, right? So get to know who each other are, understand each other. And encourage team members to talk about things that they care about, right? When there is passion, there is joy. And where there is joy, there is connection. And so I encourage people to share about the things that they're passionate about, whether that is about the work that you're doing. What is it that excites them about the work they're doing? How can they share that with the team? How can you encourage them and empower them to share about what is it that matters to them? And maybe it's not about work. Maybe it's about their kids or their pets or their hobby. Whatever that looks like, think of ways that you can get people to share their passion, because passion is joy, joy is connection. And find opportunities for team members to get outside of their comfort zone. So I hope that I pushed people a little bit today to get a little bit outside of your comfort zone, right? You don't want to push people into a danger zone, just a little bit outside of the comfort zone, which I call the growth zone, right? That's the sweet spot where you want people to feel like they're working on their flexibility. So they're bending, but they're not breaking, right? So it's a fine line there, right? Be mindful of that. And it's going to look different for each person, right? So some people, right, this is a little bit of a stretch, and for some people this was like a huge break, and they're like, I can't do what Betsaida is asking me to do, and that's okay, right? So just recognize that where everybody's at and be mindful, respectful of where they're at. Things that I want you to think about as we're kind of wrapping up, about as you're building team building strategies and thinking about how to build a successful team, where people make mistakes. So this is where what I see, and I want to share with you, is they think about it as all work and no play. And they don't give people an opportunity to de-stress and have some fun, right? I told you I used to run the California Youth Crisis Line. That was some high stress work, right? But I made sure that we also knew how to have fun, because people cannot be at maximum stress 24/7. That is an absolute like runway to burnout. So if you want your people not to burn out, you got to find ways to have some fun. If you are too rigid, that's a huge mistake, that it has to look a certain way. And that even comes with team building. If it is a mandatory team building, then you're already doing it wrong, right? So again, that comes from something that is voluntary, that they feel like they're a part of. So encourage people to do the things that they want to do, right? It might take a little more effort on your part to figure out what is it your team's excited about, but that's where you're going to have the most success. Focusing on efficiency is another mistake that I see people making, and the bond and connection that happens with the team are all the in-between moments, right? And this is especially hard right now since most of us are virtual. If you are working with a virtual team, there aren't those moments that we used to just have where we'd bump into each other as we walked, from one side of the building to the other. So these moments don't happen as easily, but it doesn't mean that they can't still happen. They just have to be a little bit more intentional. And those spaces in between the work is where the connection is also happening. So recognize the value of all of those pieces. Expecting perfection is a huge mistake, because none of us are perfect. Like I said, we're human, and we are, we're squishy, emotional beings. And it's a wonder that we can even do what we do. And so expecting people to be perfect, again, not one of us is perfect. And we will have those moments where we don't quite do it. And to feel it like we can't show that humanity, that side of us, makes it so hard to show up fully for your team. So make sure that you're not expecting perfection. You're just expecting people to be honest and to do their best. Staying in your comfort zone, right? Just talked about that, and how it's important that you grow and that you push yourself. And if your team is really, really comfortable, then that means that they're not growing, right? And so that's really important, is that you want to foster a community and a culture of growth and of challenge. And when we know that we can be challenged, but we don't have to do it alone, that makes it doable. Right? If I know this is going to be hard, but I'm not doing it by myself, I have my whole team to rely on, and we all help each other excel. Ooh, those are the kinds of teams that can really do incredible things. And the last mistake that I want to share is skipping the foundation of trust. And this is huge, because I see organizations and leaders go, yeah, they trust me, and just jump into that other piece where they're like, and now we're going to like really be good at stuff. You cannot ask people to give something that you have not been giving them. So if you are a leader and you're looking to build a great team, it has to start with trust, which means it starts with you. So you have to be giving trust to your team, and you have to be trustworthy, right? So you have to be worthy of trust from your team as well. And I know this might seem like a lot, but also I want to remind you, you don't have to do it alone. ImprovEQ, that's what I do. I love talking about teams. I love supporting teams and helping you make this as seamless and as fun as possible. So I do improv, emotional intelligence coaching, so EQ coaching, team workshops, and also a Wednesday drop-in. So if you're ever just like, hey, improv seems like a fun thing for me personally to develop my skills for some professional development, every Wednesday night on Zoom, similar to this, we play some games at 7 p.m. So I encourage you to come play if that sounds interesting. You can find all the information online. And so I'd love to talk to you about your team if there's a way that I can support you in creating that psychological safety, or whatever it is that you need. So we're at time. We can stop recording, and I'll stick around for a little bit if people have any questions. So thank you for participating. Thank you for being a part of this.
Thank you so much, Betsaida. That was an amazing workshop. I feel very privileged to have participated. Thank you so much. I hope everyone had a great time as much as I did. I know we're at time. I do want to make sure that we have a minute to see if anyone has any questions before we close.